Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Roman.
Yes.
Commissioner Figueroa.
Yes.
Commissioner Santana.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Tonight, our chairwoman will be Commissioner Tanya Santana. We will proceed with the agenda. With the roll call. After Commissioner Santana, can you read in the beginning of our meeting? I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay. Commissioners, planning board staff, ladies and gentlemen, as a chairperson of the City of Paterson Planning Board, I call this meeting of June 19, 2002 on order. I hereby state that all the provisions of the State of New Jersey Public Meeting Law have been fully and completely met, that all the notice of provisions required have been completely posted in the Planning Board office with the and in the City of Paterson clerk, that the public notice and advertisement have been published in the Herald News on June 7, 2022, is according with the law, and that a copy of such notice and public advertisement are filed in the Planning Board office. As is also the agenda listed on the application to be taken up by the Planning Board in this meeting. The procedures tonight will be according with the rules and regulations by law, and therefore determined by the Planning Board at its office in the municipal complex in the City of Paterson. Maggie, would you mind reading which are going to be our first applications?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairwoman Santana. We're going to start with the roll call. So I'm going to call in Commissioner Ahmed. Are you present, sir? Hey,
Yes, present.
thank you. Commissioner Cleaves?
Present.
Commissioner Fisher is absent. Commissioner Liranzo?
Present.
Commissioner Santana?
Present.
Commissioner Roman?
Yes.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Yes.
Councilman Kalik is absent. Vice Chairman Udine is absent. And Commissioner Northrop is absent. We have 6 commissioners present this evening. I will now proceed with the agenda. So the agenda states as follows for Wednesday, January 19, 2022. Notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act addressing effect of coronavirus measures on the next public meeting. Consistent with the coronavirus-related restrictions of Executive Order Number 107, given on Saturday, March 21st, 2020, by Governor Philip D. Murphy, the Planning Board of the City of Paterson will not conduct in-person participation of the public at all future meetings until further notice. However, public participation will be available by means of communication equipment pursuant to NJSA 10-4-8, commencing on April 15th, 2020. Though there may be potentially be a practical need for a limited number of administrative, technical, or other city personnel to be present in or near the council chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, 155 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey, in-person participation of the public is prohibited. Nevertheless, for reasons of compliance with the said Executive Order Number 107, public participation will be available by calling 1-973-321-1579, meeting ID number 711-680-001. This is for the Planning Board meeting, regular meeting of Wednesday, January 19th at 6:30 p.m. The following application will be heard this evening. JCM Investors 1012 LLC. 140 Governor Street, Block 3603, Lot 8. The applicant proposes to remove the existing three-story building and construct a new three-story residential building containing 5 units. The ground floor, first floor indicates an access door from Governor Street, a staircase, a mail and package area, a recyclable and trash room, and a 2-bedroom unit. The second and third floors will consist of 2 one-bedroom units on each floor. Variances are requested for minimum lot area, as 5,000 square feet of lot area is required and 2,500 square feet of lot area is existing. Minimum lot width, as a minimum lot width of 50 feet is required and 25 feet of lot width is existing. A side yard setback of 5 feet is required and 0 feet is proposed on one side. A 20-foot rear yard setback is required and 17 feet is proposed. Maximum building coverage, lot coverage of 60% is permitted and 63% lot coverage is proposed. The proposal is within the RA-2 zone of the 4th Ward, I apologize for that, 4th Ward redevelopment plan. This requires site plan approval and bulk variances.
Madam Chairwoman, if I may interrupt a second. Madam Secretary, you read the applicant as being JCM Investors. I have on the review 140 Governor PFRG NPP LLC. Can we confirm what the correct name of the applicant is?
Mr. Deutsch, can you assist me on this?
Mr. Sarlo, can you let us know whether it's...
Yes, Mr. Deutsch. Good evening. Let me put my appearance on the record. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. This is Charles H. Sarlo on behalf of the applicant. Good evening, Councilor, Madam Secretary, Mr. Deutsch. The original plans that were submitted is, as Madam Secretary had read, when we were getting the review report from the board's planner, they looked for a clarification, and the correct property, the correct applicant, who is the property owner, is 140 Governor PFRG NPP LLC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Councilor, for clarifying that.
Madam Chairwoman, we can proceed.
Chair, we have a new commissioner tonight that was sworn in. It's Zoraia Amar. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Deutsch, that brings our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our commissioner total to 7 this evening, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, Madam Chairwoman, you can proceed.
Before we proceed, thank you for bringing that up to my attention. I'd like to put on the record for the court reporter that Commissioner Amar is present this evening. That brings our commissioners up to 7 commissioners. Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Mr. Deutsch, will you read your review for this application, please?
I'd like to introduce our new principal planner, Salmaz Farzod. She did the reviews for tonight's meeting, and she will read them into the record. Please proceed, Ms. Farzod.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. I hope that everybody has my voice. I'm not muted. So good evening, everybody. I'm gonna start with the background of the project. This parcel was purchased from Universal Hagar's Spiritual Church on March 8, 2021. Property taxes and sewer charges are current. Persons having a 10% or greater ownership interest in 140 Governor PFRG NPP LLC are Matthew Florio, providing an address of 175 Broadway in Paterson, New Jersey, and also Angelo Martucci, providing an address of P.O. Box 120 East Hanbury, New Jersey. The survey prepared by P2 Land Surveying, dated January 15, 2021, shows that the parcel has a frontage of 25 feet on Governor Street, a rear lot line that measures 25 feet, and eastern and western side lot lines that each measures 100 feet. The parcel has area of 2,500 square feet or 0.06 acres. The parcel has an existing 3-story building on it with a place of worship on the first floor and 2 residential units on the second and third floors. The survey also indicates that there is an existing staircase leading to the entrance of the second floor on the east side of the building, a covered wooden deck with a stair to the ground level at the rear of the building on the second floor, and a barbecue area in the rear yard. The spot elevations on the survey plat indicate that the property has a rising slope from Governor Street towards the rear property line. A retaining wall measured 3 feet high and 25 feet long is existing on the east side of the property, and an existing chain link fence is extended from the outer east side of lot line to the rear yard and is connected to the rear covered deck. An empty lot is located on the east side of the subject property, and different types of dwelling units from 2-story to 4-story residential buildings are located at the rear, west, and north side of the subject property. Evans Architects has prepared a 4-page architectural submittal with the last revision in January 5, 2022. Drawing S-1 is the site plan and indicates the tax map, existing conditions, and the proposed site plan, site notes, concrete sidewalk details, and the zoning ordinance data and detail. The proposed plan indicates that the existing building is to be removed. There will be landscape areas in front and rear yard. An area of 500 square feet has been presented as a green space in the rear yard. A proposed 3-foot wall begins from the front property line and extends along the east, south, and partially west property line. A refuse and recycle area measured approximately 24 square feet is shown on the southeast of the property. We have made a note that the architect shall provide details for the proposed refuse recycling shed at the public hearing. In addition, a 4.5-foot fence is proposed along the east, south, and partially west property line. Page number S-2 is titled Site Plan Details. If approved, this proposal will require new curb and sidewalk along Governor Street, a new sanitary sewer installation, a new water service connection, stormwater recharge structures, and a fire service line connection. The plan also shows details about roof condenser units, roof leader overflow, proposed retaining wall, and shrubs tree planting. Page number SK-1 indicates the floor plans as well as details for the proposed fence and roof-mounted condenser units. No detail for the refuse recycling shed is indicated on this page. The first floor is to accommodate 1 2-bedroom unit with the area of 1,047 square feet. The unit is to contain a laundry mechanical room and 2 full bathrooms. A corridor leading to a staircase, the tenant amenity area 167 square feet, and a mail package area also located on this level. The second and third floor plans provide for 2 1-bedroom units on each floor. The 1-bedroom units contain 648 square feet and 725 square feet. Each unit is to contain a laundry area and a mechanical room. All of the units contain 1 full bathroom and exceed the minimum size requirement for a 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom unit. The proposed front elevation indicates a single-door building entrance with an entrance overhang above it. The house number is indicated on this overhang. The building will have a 2-color stucco finish and casement windows. The building has a width of approximately 19.9 feet along the Governor Street frontage. The single and double casement windows are seen on each of the 3 floors. The proposed right side elevation indicates vinyl horizontal siding for this side, and no windows is proposed for this side. The proposed left and rear elevations also indicate vinyl horizontal siding for the exterior, 2 double casement windows, and a single one on each floor. The rear elevation indicates 1 double casement window on each floor. 2 proposed landscaped areas are indicated in the floor elevation and also at the rear yard. The building indicates a top average height of 30 feet along all 4 elevations. The intent of the RA-2 residential district of the 440 development plan is to permit various types of dwellings. Vacant properties are scattered throughout this redevelopment area awaiting for either demolition or rehabilitation. The properties to the east of this proposal indicate some empty lots, and there are some properties under construction along Governor Street. If approved, this proposal may spur development of other vacant lots in the area. The applicant requests variances for the following conditions for this proposed 5-unit structure. A minimum lot area of 5,000 square feet is required, and the proposed lot has existing 2,500 square feet of lot area. A minimum lot width of 50 feet is required, and 25 feet of lot width is existing. A minimum of 5 feet side yard setback is required, and the building is to be constructed on the western side property line. Therefore, there is zero setback on this side. A minimum of 750 square feet of open space is required, and 667 square feet is proposed. While property prices are still lower in the Fourth Ward development area than the other areas of the city, there are signs that this is rebounding. Various residential projects, as well as modern senior citizen housing, approval for veteran housing on Fulton Street, and residential housing by Habitat for Humanity are some examples of growth in the Fourth Ward. It shall be the responsibility of the applicant or the preparer of the plan to obtain a letter from the city engineer indicating that the plans have been satisfactorily reviewed prior to the plans being released to the construction official. Per the note indicated on the site plan, the developer agrees that the entire site is to be equipped with video security cameras throughout public areas and site lighting to be along the traveled public way and parking area. Surveillance cameras are to be connected to City of Paterson Police Department CD. For the surrounding land uses, we need to note that this proposal is in the Wrigley Park section of the city within the 440 development plan. The area is zoned residential, with commercial areas located at some corner intersections. Governor Street and the surrounding area is predominantly a multi-family residential area. There are a wide range of dwelling types, 2-family, 2-story structures, as well as townhomes and 4-story apartment buildings. Vacant lots and dwellings in this spur are being rehabilitated, and new housing construction are being constructed in the area. For the concluding remarks, we need to mention that the Planning Board approved an application for Paterson Habitat for Humanity in May 2020, located adjacent to the subject property on 142 through 152 Governor Street on blocks 3603, lots 9, 10, 11, and 12, to allow lots 9, 10, and 11 to be developed with a single-family 3-story dwelling, and lot 12 to be used as an open space pocket park. The applicant estimates the cost of this proposal at approximately $600,000. The applicant should incorporate the design elements contained within the 440 development plan and the site and within the building. This was the staff report for the proposed site plan for 140 Governor Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly. Salma? Salma?
Good.
Okay, please excuse me if I mispronounce it. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Charles, you can proceed now and present your witness. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for the planners report. As indicated, this is a redevelopment project, the proposed demolition of a mixed-use structure with proposed 5 units of multifamily housing. There are minimum number of bulk variances that are required that was just listed, and I'll let the architect and planner that I have with me this evening elaborate on that. And in addition, we need a preliminary and final site plan approval as part of our application request. So with that as a brief introduction, I do have 2 witnesses with me this evening. I have Mr. Matt Evans of Evans Architecture, who will present testimony related to his plans and the variances. And then I have Mr. George Rita Williams from the Nishan Group, who will be qualified as an expert in the field of professional planning and justify the variances that are required in connection with this application. So with that said, as an introduction, I'd like to call Mr. Matt Evans, who I believe this board has recognized in the past as an expert in the field of architecture.
You place your right hand, you swear affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your full name for the record, please.
Matthew Evans, architect, 470 Chamberlain Ave, Paterson, New Jersey. Presently licensed in the state of New Jersey as a registered architect.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew, and we recognize you as an expert witness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Okay, Mr. Evans, you want to go through your plans, make sure you please note the date and the revision dates of the plans as you proceed for the record.
I'll post the, see if I can post this. See if you can see it. Can you see it? Can you see the plans?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so basically, these are the same plans that were outlined in the report. The existing property, we have sheet, zoom in on this. We're gonna, the sheet is S1. We have a revision date of 1/5/22. We adjusted, we reduced some variances during the process and adjusted the amenity area. Looking at the site, we have the existing site shown, and we have the proposed developed site, which is a 5-unit apartment, 3-story building, 140 Governor Street. And this is similar to other projects which we've submitted and were approved, 41 Auburn, 41 Godwin Street, and they're similar in nature to the same massing and structure with a little bit different facade treatment and some different nuances on the plan which are specific to the site conditions that we developed this for. So it's an infill lot, and the building will be demolished, and we would put all new construction for this site. And we have the site details, standard engineering details, and then we have the floor plans. The ground floor plan shows the 2-bedroom apartment, and we have amenity area for the tenants, and we have a package area, mail package area also for the tenants adjacent to the entrance on the interior. The first floor unit is a barrier-free. It's a handicap unit. It's 1,047 square feet. It meets the minimum 900 square feet, so it's a little bit over the minimum. So it's nice. As you can see, the bedrooms are large, and we have a second bathroom for the other main bedroom. Going up to the upper floors, 201 and 301 are similar. There's a large bedroom, 2 closets, and we have a nice open living, kitchen, dining. And that 1 bedroom is 725 square feet, where 600 is minimum. So it gives you a little 125 square feet more of space required. The front bedroom is a 648 square feet bed unit, and that's a 1 bedroom, and that also is a large open kitchen, dining, living space. And all these units have their own utilities, meters, and they all have their own laundry facilities. So they all have washer dryers in the units. The front elevation is it's a 3-story building. We've broke up the facade with different 2-tone stucco finish, horizontal cap, which would be a molding on the top. We have large casement windows for the bedrooms, and we have a brick entrance and covered with landscaping in the front of the proposed building. The sides have large windows also, and the rear large windows, and they're more plain on the side and the rear. And we've really put the detail on the front along Governor Street to give it an aesthetic appeal and for the neighborhood. So that is the architectural plans. I'm going to try and post, there was a question about the refuse area, and I'm going to try and post that, because what happened is I printed the plans, but it didn't print the refuse area that I put on the plan.
Can't hear you, Mr. Evans.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Can anyone else hear Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we can hear you. You may proceed.
All right, sorry. So, all right, let me try and share my picture here. What I'm gonna have to do. Give me a second. Share the screen. Give me 1 second, I'm still trying to coordinate this. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's that's gonna be the refuse, area, that's gonna be a typical refuse, container that we're proposing, and that would, in the rear yard of the property. So that was, I guess that was a concern or, question in the report. So, that would be, the presentation with the plans.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And Madam Chairwoman, any questions by the commissioners?
You said you have, Mr. Williams as a second witness, right?
Yes, you want to do all the questions at the
And then we can,
testimony?
yes, and that way we can open to the public and then go with the commissioners if they have any questions.
That's fine, Madam Chairwoman. So I'd like to next call Mr. George Rita Williams from the Ishon Group to get sworn in.
You raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I most certainly do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the new staff and new board members. My name is George Weedle Williams, Williams spelled with an S, and representing the Nishuane Group at 105 Grove Street, suite number 3 in Montclair, New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and we have to address the expert witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Sarlo. Just for the record, a couple of quick facts. Matt Evans covered just about everything, but I will say that we did review the Fourth Ward redevelopment plan, your master plan, of course, the application and the site plan that are before you this evening. We also had an opportunity to review your board planners report as was read into the record, and have been to the site at least a couple of times. I'm very familiar with the area. To that end, we did analyze the application in the context of the municipal land use law and identified the same variances that your board planner read into the record. I would just offer one qualifier as I begin my testimony, and that is 2 of the conditions are pre-existing nonconformities, and then the new nonconformities, as may have been stated, were the minimum side yard setback and the open space / amenity space. And I'll address those a bit further in a moment. Also worth mentioning, the site is now vacant for 140 Governor Street. It is in the Fourth Ward redevelopment area in the RA2 district, and it's worth repeating the intent and purpose of this portion of your redevelopment area. Quote, the intent of the RA2 is to permit a more intense residential use of land with various types of dwellings. Density is maintained in the medium range. And then the fourth ward redevelopment plan has a number of goals for that area, but it is perhaps worth mentioning very quickly that, as this board knows, the intent of the redevelopment plan is to stimulate investment and development in an area that has not reacted to normal market factors. And as part of the redevelopment planning process, the city found that this area, the fourth ward, had several indices of what used to be called blight, now known as in need of redevelopment. And your board planner spoke about a few of these indices of vacant properties, abandoned buildings, structures that are in deteriorating state, lack of taxes paid, and other social malaise. So again, the intent of the redevelopment plan is to incentivize the kind of application you're about to review this evening. And you'll hear me mention throughout my testimony that this application furthers the intent and goals of both your redevelopment plan and your master plan. That being said, very quickly, the goals of the redevelopment plan include revitalize the fourth ward, reduce blighting impacts of abandoned and vacant properties, and provide quality new housing options for area residents. Those of you that have been on the board for a while know that this applicant is well known for introducing new infill housing in the fourth ward redevelopment area and has provided a variety of housing options for Paterson residents. This is one of their smaller housing products in comparison to some of the applications this board has approved in the past. Again, there's only two minor variances. I can share a very simple exhibit just to orient the board members for the remainder of what should be a brief testimony, but give me 1 second. Bear with me 1 more second, not as facile as Matt Evans, but I think we've got it. While it's loading, I will just say for Ms. Aquaviva, this is a exhibit that was prepared by my office. It consists of a couple of images from Paterson local development documents like the master plan, the redevelopment plan, and zoning map. And the remainder of the images are all images that were captured by I and my staff during our site.
Councilor, can we have this marked as Exhibit A-1?
And it consists of 8 pages. While we're waiting for Ms. Aquaviva, I'll also add that it has the incorrect name of the applicant. This was the original applicant identification. I will submit a clean copy indicating the current applicant identification to the board secretary.
Did Councilor step away? We just wanted to get this marked as Exhibit A-1 based on the foundation laid by Mr. Williams.
I put it on the record as being marked. This is the court reporter.
Thank you, Madam Court Reporter.
Thank you very much.
Again, Commissioners, I'll be very brief. You know the area as well as, if not better than I. It's simply to give some context and generate some brief familiarity with the site and surrounding area. The first slide is simply an aerial view of the subject site, highlighted with the blue color. You can see that it's a narrow lot, relatively small compared to the surrounding lots to its left and right. And that's going to be significant in the context of the variance relief, and it also is the rationale for why there's no parking variance required or parking required on site. Sorry, that phone's never rung the whole time I've been here in this office. But the next slide, slide 3, is just a section of the zoning for the area. The site is now indicated by the white rectangle. It's clearly in the RA2 zone district of the 4th Ward redevelopment plan, as mentioned earlier. Slide 4 is just to give you a current view of the subject site. You can see it's been cleared, it's vacant now, and is surrounded by development on both sides. Again, the site is an undersized lot and relatively narrow. Slide number 5, just to give you a sense of the land development pattern on this section of Governor Street, and I would just add parenthetically that there is a variety, the land development pattern is varied in this area. There are a mix of land uses or housing typologies in the area, and you'll see a few of them in a moment. This is the property that was referred to by your board planner, I believe, that is developed by the Habitat for Humanity. Slide number 6 is the opposite side. This is 138 Governor, a more typical two-family development on Governor, and these are seen all around Paterson and certainly are part of the Governor Street landscape pattern. But so is 141 Governor, and that's on slide 7 to give you a sense of the multifamily presence on this or in this section of Governor Street. Lastly, slide 8, just to give you the remainder of the varying type of housing typologies, 154 to 160 Governor Street, showing multifamily at the lower density there. So that's just to give some context for the remainder of the testimony. I will go into the variances now. Again, there are 2 pre-existing nonconformities and 2 new variances. For the pre-existing nonconformities, in my opinion, as a professional planner, no further relief is required. We are not doing anything to exacerbate those reliefs. So those reliefs are what they are, particularly given the fact that both sides of this property are developed. That leaves the side yard and the open space relief. In my opinion, they can be characterized either in the C1 traditional hardship relief context or the C2. The C2, as this board knows, allows the board to consider if the benefits outweigh the detriments of granting the relief for the side yard and open space, and if what's being presented is an overall improvement to the strict application of your code. In my opinion, as a professional planner, both would be appropriate. Certainly the C1 hardship context, which allows the applicant to submit that there's a hardship based on the size, shape, or topography of the site. Again, this property is very narrow and is undersized for the RA2 district, which makes it a practical difficulty to comply with the strict application of your bulk and area codes. But more importantly, in my opinion, the C2 is perhaps most appropriate because several purposes of zoning would be advanced, and on the whole, what's being proposed, in my opinion, is a better zoning alternative than a strict application of your code. There is a court case, it's the Pullen v. Township of South Plainfield court case, and in that court case, the court found that boards may look at the overall benefit of the development in its review of separate bulk and area deviations, and that means if you find that on the whole, the development package as presented by Matt Evans is a good fit for this area of the redevelopment area or redevelopment plan, then you can grant the variances. As always, the applicant has to show that the purposes of zoning would be advanced if you granted those 2 reliefs that we are seeking, that there would be no substantial detriment to the zone plan, in this case your redevelopment plan, or impairment to your master plan. In my professional opinion, there are sufficient proofs for the granting of this C2, and I'll just begin with the purposes of zoning. The first purpose, and I'll read, this is subsection 8 from purposes of zoning in the municipal land use law, and it reads as follows. Quote, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. This is the first purpose of zoning and a bit of a catch-all, but I think very appropriate for this application because it would further the goals and objectives of your redevelopment plan. And by removing a substandard structure and developing in a redevelopment area, you would be advancing this purpose in terms of promoting the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare by redressing the indices of blight in the Fourth Ward redevelopment area. More on point, in my opinion, is subsection I, which is to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design. This goes to Matt Evans' testimony about the design team's approach to developing this lot in a redevelopment area. Matt Evans spoke specifically to the use of varied fenestration and building materials to add something that is aesthetically pleasing to this section of Governor Street. And as I've mentioned in the past, introduction or infill development in a redevelopment area that removes substandard buildings, abandoned buildings, or removes vacant lots is something that is aesthetically pleasing and would advance subsection I. I would also add that the good civic design would be advanced if you were to approve our application for the side yard deviation and open space. The municipal land use law also allows, as part of these proofs, the advancement of state policy, in this case, smart growth, which actually supports the Fourth Ward redevelopment plan's direction to create more compact development, more intense development, and to create more walkable neighborhoods. Neighborhoods, as this board knows, become more walkable when abandoned buildings, deteriorated structures, and vacant lots are replaced with quality development like that which is before you today. So those are positive proofs. Wrapping this up, in terms of the substantial detriment to the public good, in my opinion, if you were to grant the two reliefs that are being sought, there would be no substantial detriment to the public good. In point of fact, the deviation from the standard is not uncommon in this area, and more importantly, the proposed application advances both your redevelopment plan and master plan. The benefits outweigh any detriments, and I would submit that there are certainly no substantial impairment to your master plan, and that this is actually a better zoning alternative than a strict application of your code, because it allows Matt Evans to develop a project that works on this undersized site with that minor exception of the two variances. So for those reasons, I think the board can comfortably grant the requested release for the variances and the site plan approval. And that would conclude my direct testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Sarlo.
Madam Chairwoman?
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We're gonna open to the public, 3 minutes per caller. They can quote, the number is 973-321-1579. And I'm gonna repeat it one more time, it's 973-321-1579. And the meeting ID is 711-680-001. One more time, the meeting ID is 711-680-001. We're gonna provide 3 minutes for callers. Mr. Williams, you still have your presentation on the meeting.
I'll take that down now.
Thanks. Madam Secretary, do we have any callers?
Not at this time, but you can open it up to the commissioners and give me a few minutes and I will let you know.
All right, perfect. Any commissioners have any questions for the witnesses for this application? No?
Yes, this is Commissioner Figueroa, Madam Chair.
Please.
Thank you. I have a question as far as the, ADA, like the disability, accessibility for disabled individuals for this project.
Mr. Evans?
You want, all right, so, basically what we did is for the first floor apartment, it's all at grade level, which would be, you enter at grade, there's no, steps or any, inaccessible ramping. It'll all be, open, for handicap accessibility, all the kitchens, the main bathroom is full ADA compliant. And the second bathroom is a regular bathroom, so it doesn't have to meet that same, as long as you provide one barrier-free full bathroom and the kitchen, and all the doors and are 3-foot wide doors, and so we've designed that to meet those codes.
Any other commissioner have any questions?
Commissioner Lianzo.
Mr. Commissioner Linas?
Mr. Matthew,
Yeah.
the setbacks for the building, are they accurate?
Yeah, so we have the building, we have the right side of the building is along the property line. And then we have, the left side, we have 5.1 feet, on the, left side. And then we have 3 feet in the front, and then the rear is, 20 feet. So we have 23 feet, the building is 77, that's 100 feet, and 19-foot 11, and, they all meet the, setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner has any questions? Okay, Mr. Matthew, I have one question. For the, refugee, you're gonna include the recycling, or, cause it's, by the way, it's really nice, the design you have for the garbage disposal, but I'm wondering whether that include recycling too.
Yes, that's basically, we're gonna use, that one would be for garbage, and then we'd have an identical one, so there'd be 2 of those, would be one for recycling, one for, garbage.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any callers?
We have no callers at this time for this application.
Okay, any commissioners? Has any question? No? Okay, Mr. Charles, can you proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So just to summarize very briefly, as this is a straightforward application, I know the commissioners have heard of these types of applications many a times. There are 2 pre-existing non-conforming variances, as Mr. Williams had indicated. There are 2 other bulk variances that we are seeking relief from. Mr. Williams put on the testimony in terms of making the proofs for both the C1 and the C2 variance. He's leaning more towards the C2. I also think that the C1 variance, which is a hardship variance based on the narrowness of the lot, carries equal weight. But notwithstanding that, he did put on, in my opinion, the necessary proofs under both C1 and C2. And then under both of those, he also had to put on the necessary proofs as it relates to the negative criteria, which I believe he also did in a satisfactory manner, which would allow this commissioners to grant the variances in the plans as presented. So that would conclude my summation, and we thank you for your time and consideration, and we would ask for an approval based on the plans presented and the relief requested. Thank you.
Okay, any commissioner has, would like to make a motion for this application?
I would like to make a motion and let the secretary read the paperwork. I don't have it in front of me.
Will this be for approval of Commissioner Idanzo?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Give me 1 second, commissioners. Okay, this is a motion to approve, from Commissioner Pedro Liranzo on the application of 140 Governor PRC LLC, 140 Governor Street, Block 3603, Lot 8, to propose to remove the existing three-story building and construct a new three-story residential building containing 5 units. Let me proceed to the bottom as far as the amount of parking spaces. I don't see that, but I will continue with the ground floor. First floor indicates an access door from Governor Street, a staircase, a mail and package area, a recyclable and trash room. I'm sorry, in a 2-bedroom unit for approval. This is for bulk and site plan approval and an RA-2 zone in the 4th Ward redevelopment plan. He so moves that the board attorney prepare a resolution granting state approvals, bulk variances site plan, subject to planning board approval, Hudson Essex State Soil Conservation District approval, Paterson Historic Preservation Commission. He so moves. Is there a second?
Do we have a second?
Second by Commissioner Figueroa.
Okay, give me one moment. Commissioners. Commissioner Ahmed?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cleaves?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher? I'm sorry, he's absent. Commissioner Ilanzo?
Yes.
Commissioner Roman?
Yes.
Commissioner Amar?
Yes.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Yes.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and Chairwoman Santana,
Yes.
6 in attendance. Am I missing someone? 6. That's your vote. Mr. Acquaviva? Okay, this application has been granted.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Give me one moment before we proceed. Can we proceed to the next application? Give me one moment. Commissioner Santana, can you call me, please? We are ready to proceed.
Okay, so we have our second application. Please excuse me if I take my time to read this. It's a little bit hard with the computer to read the application. So on the second application, we have T&E number 2 Paterson LLC at 602 is 33th Street, Paterson, New Jersey, 07257. Do we have the lawyer who's going to represent this applicant?
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair. Alan Mariconda, my office 726 Market Street, Patterson, on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCann.
You're welcome.
So the applicant proposed to create 12 residential units and a system building with a church to remain. The combined lot contained an area of 10,270 square feet and is located on the south side, on the southern side of L Street between Mill Street to the west and Ciancia Street to the east. The basement indicates storage, mechanic unit, an elevator, and a staircase. The first floor proposed the system church with a 90% seat occupancy and three one-bedroom units. The second floor proposed 5 one-bedroom units. The third floor proposed 1 studio unit, 2 one-bedroom units with 2 one-bedroom units, each with stairs to a lot area above, and 1 two-bedroom unit. 7 off-street parking spaces are indicated on the Surfer parking lot. Variances are requested for lot area, 60,800 square feet. Required and 10,270 square feet is the system. A minimum front yard setback as 20 feet is required and 0 feet is system. 14 feet of combined side yard required and 0 feet of combined side yard is the system. 25 feet of rear yard setback required and 0 feet is the system. The setting of the maximum lot coverage as 40% is permitted and 60% is the system. Floor area radius of 1.2 permitted and a floor area radius of 1.7 is the system. Open space, 2,400 square feet required and 0 square feet proposed. And parking 52 of street parking space required and 7 of street parking space proposed. This proposal is located within the R4 High Density Residential District, requires site plan approval and bulk variance. Ms. Salmons, right? Salmons, will you please read your review?
Sure. Property taxes and surcharges are current. Richmond and Shagaf, providing an address of 35 Dale Avenue in Paterson, New Jersey, is the sole stockholder of T&E2 Paterson LLC.
Can you please raise your voice a little more? I don't know how hard time hearing you.
Sure. The survey prepared by Robert F. Hogan, Land Surveyor, dated October 20, 2019, shows that lots 9 and 10 had a combined frontage of 100 feet on Elm Street, a combined rear lot lines that also measures 100 feet, and eastern and western lot lines that measure 102.7 feet each. As indicated on the survey, 2- and 3-story block buildings have a possible 2.7 feet of deed overlap with lots 16, 17, and 18 located all on the southern side of the subject property. The combined lots 9 and 10 contain area of 10,270 square feet or 0.07 acres. This site is located on the southern side of Elm Street between Mill Street to the west and Ciancia Street to the east. A one-story garage and 2 and 3-story block buildings are all located on lots 9 and 10. The 2-story block building and 1-story garage form an L-shaped building which are attached to the west side of the 3-story building. An existing concrete ramp on the west side of the 2-story building is to be removed. Evans Architects has prepared a 3-page site plan revised on October 14, 2020. Page number S-1 is the proposed site plan and indicates the concrete sidewalk detail, the site lighting detail, the concrete half-unit dwelling requires 16,800 square feet of lot area. As the combined lots 9 and 10 have 10,270 square feet of lot area, a variance is requested. This site plan indicates that the proposed buildings are located on the front, rear, eastern, and western side property lines, which also indicates 0 setback to each of these property lines. The applicant proposes one curb cut on the northwest side of the property, which measures 20 feet in width. A total of 7 parking spaces are indicated on the surface parking lot of the property. A variance is requested for not providing the required 52 parking spaces, including 22 spaces required for residential units and 30 spaces required for the church visitors. Page number A-1 and A-2 are the floor plans as well as the front elevation of the buildings. The basement floor plan indicates no changes in this floor, and it will remain as existing storage areas. The existing elevator and staircase in this floor are to remain, which will provide access to the top floors of the 3-story building. The first floor contains an existing place of worship, including the existing sanctuary, with 90 people sitting occupancy, and the existing pulpit and 3 one-bedroom units. There are 3 entrances from Elm Street. 2 entrances provide access to the common area of the church, 3 bathrooms, the elevator, and the internal staircase to access the residential units on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The 3rd entrance provides access to the 1st and 2nd floor residential units. A one-bedroom unit, which was formerly an existing garage, has an entrance from the surface parking lot on the northeast side of the property. The one-bedroom units in the first floor have areas of 812 square feet, 934 square feet, and 889 square feet. The second floor plan indicates a total of 5 one-bedroom units, which have areas of 832 square feet, 1,110 square feet, 1,190 square feet, 715 square feet, and 957 square feet. The third floor indicates 2 one-bedroom units with areas of 773 square feet and 786 square feet, as well as 1 two-bedroom unit with area of 895 square feet and 1 studio with area of 386 square feet. 2 one-bedroom units have an internal staircase to access the open loft area above. All of the residential units contain a full bathroom, a kitchen, a living and dining area, and a mechanical closet, and all meet or exceed the minimum required floor area. There is no area considered for the refuse recycling for this building. In addition, nothing is mentioned on the site plan about the placement of the security camera in the subject property. Page number A-1 also indicates the front elevation of the buildings. The 3-story building shows a flat roof and new stucco finish and 4 arch windows on each floor. The height of the building from the finished grade to the flat roof is measured 35 feet. The 2-story building contains a gable roof and 4 arch windows on each floor with a new main entrance for this building. Variances are requested for lot area. 6,800 square feet required and 10,270 square feet exists. 20 feet rear yard setback is required and 0 feet exists. 14 feet of combined side yard required and 0 feet of combined side yard is existing. 25 feet of rear yard setback required and 0 feet existing. Maximum lot coverage as 40% is permitted and 60% is existing. Floor area ratio 1.2 of FAR is permitted and 1.7 is existing. Open space 2,400 square feet required and 0 square feet proposed. And parking 52 parking off-street parking spaces required and 7 spaces proposed. 12 residential units require a total of 22 parking spaces. And the church requires a total of 30 parking spaces for the anticipated 90 congregants. The parking lot layout indicates 7 parking spaces, 5 of which are placed diagonally on the west side of the property, and 2 spaces are located at the entrance of the residential units. The placement of the parking spaces will require vehicles to back out to Elm Street in order to exit the property. The proposal does not offer any amenity space, either in the form of a community center, but a usable open space landscape area for the residents, as this project is a multi-family residential dwelling. Providing a community center instead of the church may be beneficial for residents and at the same time obtain more compatibility with surrounding residential buildings. It would also reduce Elm Street congestion due to the lack of parking spaces for future church members. It shall be the responsibility of the applicant or the preparer of the plan to obtain a letter from the city engineer indicating that the plans have been satisfactorily reviewed prior to plans being released to the construction official. As for the surrounding land uses, we need to mention that this proposal is in the Dublin section of the city, which is one of the earliest settled residential neighborhoods in Paterson. The majority of the housing stock is over 100 years old and are composed of mainly 2- and 3-story multi-family dwellings built on lots with an average width of 25 feet. Some of the parcels have off-street parking, but most do not. Elm Street is a one-way street and provides on-street parking, which is mostly taken by the residents of the residential units of these streets. As for concluding remarks, we need to mention that the applicant estimates the cost of this proposal at approximately $750,000. The applicant should merge lots 9 and 10 into one deed, and the deed should state that the building is to contain 12 units. This was the staff review of the proposed site plan for 24 and 26 through 30 Elm Street. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your review. Mr. Maricona, can you proceed, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair again, and good evening, commissioners and staff. Thank you for the review. We're presenting an application this evening that we're going to modify or amend right off the top here. Late this afternoon, I had some discussion with your planning staff, and the applicant is wishing to present an amendment to this application. Obviously, you've heard the nature of the proposal as it presently is constituted. This is a building, for the commissioner's background, that has a long industrial use, old industrial use. It's vacant now. And as you can see, it's a vacant church facility at the present time. The applicant is very interested in, bringing this building into an adaptive reuse that would serve the surrounding community. He's a longstanding Paterson businessman and has provided such uses in the past going forward, before this board and others. So what we'd like to do this evening, in consideration of the staff review, we take it into account, we take it very seriously. We submitted a quick letter to Mr. Deutsch's attention late today, indicating that we would be seeking the ability to remove the proposed church facility. It's been in use in the past. It's a non-conforming use in the R4 residential zone. And the applicant has found, as we've moved closer to tonight's meeting, that there's no practical tenant that would utilize this facility. and you would like to essentially withdraw that part of the application that asks for the continuation of the church use. And what we'd like to do for that space that was designated for the church use, along the lines of your planning review, we would like to designate it as a community center multi-purpose area to serve the needs of the residents and the surrounding community to some extent on a low-intensity basis. This would include an indoor fitness and recreation area, some passive recreation as well, maybe a computer reading room, along with general amenity space to provide a quality environment for the tenants. So we think that's a much better use to limit the entire building to these types of uses rather than a church facility, which would be much more problematic, we believe, in this particular location. The applicant is interested in being a good neighbor here. He has that history in the city before, and he believes that that kind of charitable and community use of facility there would be the best way to go. The exact specifics could be provided by Mr. Evans by an amended plan, if we can proceed with his testimony in that regard. He'll outline for you what the nature of the proposed residential units are and the variances that are being sought this evening. So with that being said, we'll call Mr. Evans, and hopefully we understand there are some members of the public that are on, and they will hopefully appreciate the amendment and clear modification that the applicant is proposing this evening. Therefore, I'll call Mr. Evans at this time.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Matthew Evans, architect planner, 470 Chamberlain Ave, Paterson, New Jersey, presently licensed in the state of New Jersey as a professional planner and a registered architect.
Madam
Yes,
Chair, we
sir.
have to accept you.
Yeah, we accept Mr. Evans as witness. You can proceed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Evans, obviously you've heard the report of our principal planner as well as my opening comments, is that
Yes.
correct? All right, could you give us your plan as to be posted, and then we can talk about what the applicant proposes.
Okay, can you see the plan posted? Okay.
Yes, we can.
We have 3 sheet submission. Sheet S1, as you can see, the property, we have on the survey and the site plan, basically, there's no additions to the building. All we're doing is adaptively reusing the interior of the building and converting the industrial and church areas to more conforming to residential apartments. As you can see, it's the site, as I mentioned, conditions would remain, the existing parking, asphalt, lighting along the side. We're proposing site lighting be to the exterior and showing the parking as it's laid out presently.
That's 7 spaces?
Yeah, there's 7 spaces, and that's existing. And then we go to, I posted a photograph from Google to give you a little bit more perspective of how it's laid out. You can see the 3-story industrial section, and then there's the old church basically on adjacent to that, and then the parking is adjacent to the church, the old church area. Then the residential character of that remains. In the neighborhood, there's a new building towards Main Street that's been built. I believe NJCDC built a multifamily a few lots down near a few years back. And then we show the tax map, and we show the site in question, which was previously exempt church property. Now it's owned privately and back on the tax rolls, and that's lot 9 and 10. It's on Elm Street, which is a one-way street, and it runs from Mill Street to Chianchi Street, and that would be, as you can see, some of these lots are smaller, 25-foot lots. There's a mix of lots, very old housing in that area. We show the improvements that we're doing, lighting, curbing as needed, and sidewalks that need replacement would be replaced in accordance with the requirements from City of Paterson Engineering. And looking at the zoning table, we show basically the conversion of the non-conforming to conforming residential. And based on the pre-existing bulk character of the property, we have some existing non-conforming, we have existing non-conforming setbacks and bulk. Also, the lot area is 10,270 square feet, which is less than the required 16,800 for what we're doing. And then we have the building coverage, the pre-existing non-conforming, and I would say the parking, which Mr. Mariconda spelled out with the conversion from the church to a community-based use would reduce our parking requirement.
Right, now we already have it, we've already complied with building height and number of stories because that's not changing, is that right?
Right, nothing's changing on the, we're just adaptively reusing, which is promoting the general welfare and character based on converting these buildings to a residential. So looking at the floor plans, we can go to the, I'll start at the basement. The basement level is basically storage, existing space that would be used for tenants and for storage and the landlord storage, and that would be the extent of that. There's no changes proposed to the basement. Excuse me. And then we have the elevation is existing. We're going to spruce up the facade with new stucco finish throughout to bring it in more aesthetically appealing character of the building. So then we have the first floor plan. We have the main sanctuary space, which is the church, would be converted to the community-based use, which would be part of the application now. And what we're doing is we would the main entrance would be from Elm Street on the 3-story building, and we have a common area, an elevator, existing bathrooms, which could be used for the community-based use. And then we have, on the lowest level, we have Unit 101, 102, and 103. 101 is 812 square feet. That is going to be, you can see the dashed lines, there's demolition involved and reconfiguring that space to a one-bedroom apartment. And 600 square feet is the minimum for a one-bedroom. So we have 212 square feet in addition. So that's a nice, open, large apartment. We have Unit 102 is a one-bedroom. That's a large apartment also. We have 937 square feet. It could almost, it could comply as a 2-bedroom, but it's a 1-bedroom with a large living, open kitchen dining area. And we have Unit 103 is a 1-bedroom. That's 889 plus square feet. And that is, has a large kitchen and bathroom, and converting that space to a 1-bedroom. So let me go to the next sheet. then we have the second floor plan. And the second floor plan, we have, unit 201. So we have, as I mentioned before, we have the stair and elevator, which is common area on the 3-story section. When you get off the elevator or come up the stair, you have the first, let's say going down the hall, the first unit 201 is a 1-bedroom unit. So that's 1,100 square feet. That's a very large 1-bedroom, and which complies with many, even a 3-bedroom. But it's a nice loft style living with open living and sleeping areas. Then we have the 1-bedroom unit 202, which is same thing as a large apartment, 1,100, almost 1,200 square feet with an open floor plan. Unit 203 is a 1-bedroom unit, and we have the 832 square feet, which is a large open plan also. Going to unit 204 and 205, they have a separate entrance. And because, as you saw, those elevations where the church and the industrial building connected, they're basically separated. They were initially, there still are 2 buildings connected. So we have a stair coming up for this 204 and 205. 204 is a 1-bedroom, and that has 715 square feet. Unit 205 is 957, so that's an extra large 1-bedroom with an open living plan. And then we go to the 3rd floor. Now, looking at the 3rd floor, we have the showing the roof of the 2-story adjacent to the 3rd floor. So we have a 2-story section, which was the old church, and then we have the 3-story building, which we are proposing 4 units. So as I mentioned before, getting off the elevator, unit 301 is a studio apartment. It's 300, almost 400 square feet, 386 square feet. Then we go to, let's say across the hall, we have 302. That's almost 900 square feet. That's 2-bedroom unit. And then we have unit 303 is a 1-bedroom unit, 786 square feet. And then we have unit 304 is a 1-bedroom, 773 square feet. So all these units, let me elaborate a little bit. On the rear units, we have a little open loft above these. You see the gray area here. And inside the unit, the loft, we have stairs going up to above the bedrooms because it's a high ceiling on that floor. We have just a little loft area, additional space above the bedrooms on that floor. So, so I show that also on this little detail. We show the open loft area. We have the apartment schedule with all the square footages, and that would be the extent of the architectural.
Okay, Mr. Evans, I'm just gonna follow up a little bit in terms of the zoning chart that you addressed. Again, every variance except lot area and parking are pre-existing conditions, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, lot area of over 10,000 square feet for a proposal of 12 residential units with community space. As a comparison to other approved projects in the downtown area and elsewhere, that ratio of square footage to 12 units, how do you feel about that from a planning perspective? That square footage?
Well, in an R4 and even in R2, R3 and R4 multifamily, this is a good ratio. I mean, as I mentioned, we have large apartments,
right?
And basically we're adaptively reusing the structures that are there because, it's encouraged by the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So this would suit the neighborhood, and it would not intensify the area because usually with a lot this size, it's more conducive for higher buildings, larger buildings, and more intensive use.
Right, that's the design of the R4 zone, or purpose of the R4 zone, I should say. With respect to, the parking that we discussed earlier as well, obviously the modification or, change from the proposed church use to the substantially, less intense, community space. Could you describe for us in terms of how that space would be dimensioned and, how that would impact the parking variance, per se?
So, it would reduce the requirement for parking, as, the existing church use, would be, abandoned, and then we would, do the community. So basically, using a rule of thumb of 200 square feet, one parking space for every 200 square feet, we're looking at reducing it, by, needing a variance for 12 spaces as opposed to, the original, I think it was 32 spaces, for that.
30 of them.
30 space, sorry.
Right.
So we reduced it to 12 spaces required for that space,
And 22 for the residential.
yes.
So you're basing that on, I believe, 60 by 33 feet, dimensions of usable community space in that area?
Yes. So
Okay.
that's the,
And that would be only use in that area, no other commercial use, no other church use?
no.
Right. And, now we talked about, of course, the parking variance with 7 spaces. As you can see, the surrounding residential zone has very limited parking for multifamily buildings. So this is not out of character in terms of on-site parking?
Right, we would be one of the few properties in the area that has on-site parking.
Right.
These buildings have been from the 1800s, most of them, and that it's hard to really create any parking with this application.
Right.
The proximity to Main Street is about a block and a half up Elm Street, and so we have mass transit on Main, and we have several blocks away is the train station, but right, we have Main Street, which has easy access to the New York City and mass transit, and also access to Main Street, which is shopping, and we have down Lower Main Street has supermarket. I believe the supermarket's in Center City also.
Right.
So we have a lot of amenities in the neighborhood.
Right, this is a very walkable neighborhood in terms of needed services, recreation, entertainment, is that right?
Yes.
And we're, of course, close to the Great Falls Historic District?
Yes, so we have the National Park, which is in walking distance, and shopping, so there's a lot of amenities in the area
Right.
for this site.
So in your estimation, this could certainly function with the parking proposed?
Yes.
All right. And the use is an absolutely permitted use when it's just residential and community space?
Yes.
I think that would conclude your testimony at this time. Obviously, you're available for questions from the commissioners and the members of the public. I think that would conclude our testimony at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mathieu. How many more witnesses, do you have for this application?
Just the applicant to ratify testimony, that would be it.
Okay, in this case, we're gonna open to the public, because I think this is a big application, and then you can have the applicant. We're gonna provide 3 minutes per caller, and the phone number is 973-321-1579. It's 973-321-1579, and the meeting ID is 711-680-001. The number is 711-680-001. I don't know if any commissioner has any question while we're waiting for any callers.
This is Commissioner Figueroa. I just wanted clarification. And I'm sorry, bear with me. I don't know if I'm a little bit under the weather, actually. The amendment with the removing of the church use, and the tentative low intense use for the community, like a community room, I guess a computer area, is that gonna be for the tenant? Did I hear correctly, tenants only? That's my first part of my question. And the second part, are the ramifications on the parking requirement?
Sure. Again, we indicated in our, communication to the staff and through our testimony now again, that it would primarily be a community-centered, multi-purpose, area for the tenants. But we would like to open ourselves to the ability to also, have that degree of service to the surrounding residents, if it's possible to work those two things in together. We believe it is. We believe we could provide some facility or a space for the residents who live in obviously a pretty intense area to also derive some benefit from that. Obviously, we're open to the board's suggestions in that regard. We're flexible, but we would prefer to do that. As far as the second part of your question, I would have to defer to one of the planners to talk about our estimation. Our estimation is that 22 required parking spaces for residential use would remain the same, but based on Mr. Evans' calculation of the area to be utilized for community purposes of 60 by 33 would be 12 spaces. So we'll defer to staff as well on that.
Commissioner, do you have any more questions?
Okay, so you're deferring to staff, so who's gonna speak on that, so we could get some type of response?
Well, again, we think it's 12 spaces, but we'll defer to the professional planning staff if they can give us a comment on it.
Chairwoman Santana, we do have two callers. I'm getting them connected shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
How did you come up with 12 spaces, Mr. Maricondo?
Mr. Evans, you want to?
Oh, yeah, we based it on square footage, and we used a rule of thumb of 200 square feet for parking space. So that came out.
12 spaces in addition to the apartments, but the apartments are required.
Correct.
Right, so it's 34 spaces altogether.
So the community space is not, it's not just for the apartment dwellers?
We proposed it as primarily for the apartment residents, but my client's very involved in the Paterson community as a businessman, and his thought was that that there might be ability to share that space with some of the residential uses if some sort of nonprofit entity could use it on a part-time basis as well. But we're open to any restrictions that you might suggest.
Well, I think we should have to know more about what the proposed uses would be.
Well, again, I just tried to describe it as best I could. As per paragraph 13 in your report, the discussion was about amenity space in the form of a community center, okay? And so taking that comment, we ran with it essentially. So we tried to describe the proposed use as a multi-purpose area to serve the needs of the residents and surrounding the community on a low-intensity basis. We talked about possible indoor fitness and recreation, computer reading room, along with general amenity space to create a nice environment in the area. So, again, we're willing to accept whatever limitations the board might place on that in terms of who could use that area.
What if we just wanted it for the apartment dwellers only?
I think the applicant can accept that, and, he was hoping to be a little broader, but I will have him come on and talk about it as well, but I believe he can, yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have a caller. Are you ready to proceed with this gentleman?
Let me see, Miss Commissioner Figueroa, do you have any other questions?
No, I agree with that guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, Madam Secretary, can you identify the caller, please?
Absolutely. The name of the gentleman is Joseph Grillo. Are you there, sir?
I'm here, yes.
I will now transfer you to the meeting. Please wait until you are guided by the chairperson or the attorney.
Okay.
You may proceed, Mr. Aquaviva.
Yeah, I was having Wi-Fi problems, but I have to log in from another device.
I hear you, Mr. Aquaviva.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely loud and clear.
Okay, I don't know if anybody heard me. I was having problems with Wi-Fi. I had to log in from another device.
I made them aware of that earlier, and it's fine. The gentleman's
Thank
name
you.
is Joseph Grillo. Mr. Grillo, can you please have direction? Amalinda, can you please proceed with this caller? Thank you.
Can you, Mr. Grillo, can you say your full name for the record?
Yes, it's Joseph Grillo.
Okay. And can you state your address, please?
It's P.O. Box 1596 in Clifton, New Jersey 07015.
Understand you have a P.O. box, but for the record, you have an actual address.
Well, my office address is 195 Lakeview Avenue, and it's also in Clifton.
Mr. Grillo,
That's 07011.
do you have any interest in properties in Paterson?
Yeah, I have several, yes.
Okay.
The one I'm calling about is Elm Street, is 20 Elm Street. That's my property, 20 Elm Street.
Okay. You own that property?
I do, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. You can proceed with your questions for the architect.
Okay.
I just wanted to make something clear. Is right now we are entertaining questions of our architect. If you have any statements that you want to make or any opinions that you want to place on the record, you will have a chance to do that, but not until later in the meeting. Right now, this time is reserved for any questions that you have of the applicant, of the architect. I'm sorry.
Well, it's really my concern. I mean, look, the improvements are welcome, right? Obviously, the area needs some upgrades, but my main concern is the parking, and I don't know if they really assessed, just on that side where the proposal is.
Okay, let me
families.
All right, let me just interrupt you a second. Okay, sounds like you want to make comments and you want to place your opinion on whether the application is good or bad. So why don't you hold on? You will have plenty of time to do that, and you'll have an opportunity to do that. But it will be later on in the meeting after all of the testimony is concluded. So just stay on the line. Our secretary will let you know when you'll come back in and make whatever comment you need to make. Okay?
Okay. All right. No problem.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Do you have anybody else on the line? Madam Secretary, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. Do we have any other callers on the line right now?
But apparently the gentleman we're trying to locate him, but has not called us back. So we can proceed. If for any reason he does come on in, we'll address him at the end.
Yes, Madam Chair, let's proceed. That's a good suggestion. If the caller comes back, we can entertain any questions from him at that point.
Okay, any other commissioner has any questions for Mr. Matthew? If not, I do have a few questions. I know that this property is now under the historic district in Paterson, but based on the history of it, it would be eligible. And I'm just wondering if that had been taken in consideration in this application, especially taking in consideration the comments that were made by the Historic Reservation Commissions.
Okay, basically what we're doing, as I mentioned, we would not negatively impact the existing architecture of the buildings. Basically what we would be doing is, as I mentioned, is an adaptive reuse. So it would be keeping the, basically the massing, the architectural details, all that of the buildings intact. And then also we would be basically freshening it up. We're gonna clean up the facades and just put on stucco and finishes on the exterior of the building. So that would be part of this application. As you can see, and if you've driven by, it's in disrepair, but as part of the renovation and reconstruction, we would do the whole building over.
Okay, so I see that based on your plan, the front of the church building, is gonna change. You're adding 2 more windows on it and moving out the front door of the building.
Yeah, like there's like a little shed of an entrance in there, as you can see now. That'll be removed, and we're putting a proper entry to the building, and then using those existing openings, the old window openings that were blocked up, we're going to reopen those and create windows in those openings.
Madam Chair, we did not receive any direct comments from the Historic Commission, because as you say, we're not part of the Historic District, but you alluded to some report from the Historic District?
I mean, I know this building is really old, and I understand it's not, to be clear, it's not under the historic district. But I mean, I'm just wondering whether the applicant is taking in consideration maintaining, the area.
Right, no, we absolutely are. That's why we want to preserve it with that combined community space and leave the structural integrity and style of the buildings intact. Maybe I misunderstood. I thought you indicated there was a report, but I had not received any reports from any outside agency at all. But we definitely want to work. We know that this is one of the most older districts in the city in terms of residential use. Obviously, most of these residences were built during the time of the Industrial Revolution or shortly thereafter to accommodate housing for many of the textile workers in the city that sprung out around the Falls area. So that's why we want to keep the building intact, provide quality housing in a zone that absolutely permits this number of units, and use the church facility as an adjunct or adjoining facility for quality living space. Quality space adjoining the living space, I should say. So we're definitely amenable to any ideas the commissioners may have in that regard.
All right, thank you so much for your comments. Commissioner Lorenzo?
Yes, how about the lighting and the cameras outside of the building?
Well, we're proposing all perimeter lighting around the building as per the site plan we submitted. So we show that it's all wall-mounted lighting, and that would light the front of the building and the side and the rear of the building. We show a luminaire diagram for that. And we don't have any language in our proposal about video cameras. The applicant could, probably talk a little bit about that if needed, about security. So that's what we have at present.
But that could certainly be an additional condition of any approval that security cameras be added to Mr. Evans' final plan, which of course is going to undergo a little additional modification vis-a-vis the community use that we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Secretary?
Commissioner, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Hughes.
Please, Mr. Commissioner.
I have a question. If you're going to convert the church space building into a community center, how do you control, what are the controls for not everyone in that community or that block using it. If you call it a community center, how do you limit it to just a specific group of people?
Well, it's going to be primarily for the usage of the residents in the building. So maybe the term community center is a little too broad in terms of the multi-purposes that we'd like to access in that area. But of course, if the board would allow us that broader definition, it would be definitely the residents and the owner would set the guidelines for what type of outside community use could take place there. But again, we're open to those suggestions, and I would like the applicant to talk about that, because I want him to explain to the board whether he is willing to accept the community space to be limited to the residents. I think that's important.
Yes, I think so too, because you can't call it a community center and then limit it.
Right, no, we understand, of course, the community center would have to have guidelines with hours and, who uses the space when. That's why to broaden it beyond the residents is a challenge. So, I want Richmond to testify as to what he's willing to offer to the board about that space, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Maricana, can you call your next witness, please?
Sure, Richmond, you're gonna be sworn.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Please state your full name for the record, sir.
Richmond Eshagov.
Could you
Spell your last name?
I'm sorry.
Spelled Eshaghhoff.
Thank you.
Okay, Richmond, you're the principal owner of the LLC which owns this property, is that correct?
Correct.
And obviously, you've heard all the testimony and comments and staff comments and amendments that we talked about in terms of limiting the church use. I talked about the fact that you could not find a suitable church tenant in your recent activity on the site. Is that right?
Well, to be honest with you, we didn't try all that hard. The existing space does have a CO for a church. So I think in terms of the parking, we're actually, if reducing what's the CO for the building is there now.
Right.
So, we spoke about it and we said, how can we appease to the comments from the city? And we agreed to change to something that would have a lesser use.
Right. So again, we're not moving forward with the proposed church use, just to clarify the first step of that, right?
Correct.
Right. Now, I know I discussed the fact that this community concept, multi-purpose space, we were hoping to set up a sort of a mutual use of the space by residents and possibly serve some neighborhood use as well. There seems to be some concern about that, exhibited by a couple commissioners. It's your call as to how you would like the board to consider the amended application. So I'm going to give you the opportunity here to tell us how you would like that amendment to move forward, okay?
Sure. I think to make that space exclusively for the residents, it's a large space. It's about, I would say, 20% of the whole space of the building, the total square footage. It'd be a little challenging to devote all that space only solely to the residents. I'm open to, possibly splitting up the space and dedicating some of it to the residents and some of it to some sort of community-based entity service. If we can amend the application to that, then I think I'm more open to that.
Okay. Obviously, then the commissioners will, of course, have the opportunity to ask you about that split usage. So it's your call at this point, as I said, and feel free to make any other comment you wish. Otherwise, you agree with our testimony?
I do. The comment I want to say is that, the building, the area, there's a lot of single-family homes. A lot of them, I think most of them don't have any parking. The building has been vacant for several years, from what I understand, long before I took it over. I think it would bring, I spoke to one of the residents who's very, he's basically the mayor of the streets. his name is Victor, and he said that we'd love to see the building spruced up and it's gonna make the street better, the neighborhood better. Unfortunately, I didn't ask him to testify. I guess I should have, but I understand there's some requirements that we're not meeting, but I think overall it's going to spruce up the neighborhood and the street, and that's it.
Okay, Rich, I just wanted to follow up. I think you might have misspoken. This area is, this building is surrounded by multi-family residential buildings, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. They're seeing, 2-story buildings. I guess they're multi-family.
As you looked at the streetscape, but they're all multi-family buildings, correct?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously Richmond is available for any questions at this time.
Madam Secretary, do we have the caller connected or?
There's one, Joseph Willow. I don't know if you're referring to me about any questions.
Okay, do you have any questions for Mr. Richmond?
No, once again, the main concern is the parking. You mentioned one families, but there's very few one families there.
He corrected that. He corrected that on the record.
Okay, if you have any comments, we're gonna have a session, almost at the end of the application, so you can have, stated your comments on the record.
Okay, all right. When you said any more than any visitors, I was here, so I just chimed in, I guess.
No, thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any other callers?
We have no callers at this time.
Okay, any commissioner has any questions?
This is Commissioner Figueroa. This is more, I just want to continue dialogue with Richard.
Richmond.
I see your whole thing with the shared space, the split usage with the tenants. You're trying to come up with collaborative type compromising way to use the space. As you mentioned, it's a large space.
Correct.
Okay? So with that, how would the CO that's currently in use for that, for church, would it have to be amended? Let's say you wanted to do and use like a 501c3, a non-for-profit wanted to share the space there. How would that work with the CO that's currently standing with
I think that's a question that would be more appropriate for me to address, and surely the CO would have to be specific in exactly as per the solution of approval if one were to be granted, and we could design it very specifically, I believe, as the way we described it today, and I'm open to any suggestions that council might have if a resolution were to be adopted, but clearly I think you hit it right on point, the type of thing that we would like to do, and
I think that would be a great way to try to appease and work with the community at the same. If my fellow Commissioner Cleve stated, to be inclusive of the community. There are a lot of non-for-profit, great organizations, even within the city now, that are probably in need of space.
Right.
My question is Al Aquaviva. How would that be if we were to put forth a motion? How would we include that as a requirement?
Well, that was the first thing I was gonna address after all of the testimony was concluded. And, well, we could discuss it now, we don't have to wait till then. Michael, I guess, the question I have for you, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of back and forth. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, so to speak, as a condition. If the board were so inclined to approve this application tonight, I'm not sure how I can phrase this as a condition. I guess my first question is what area of this building specifically are we talking about? And I guess I heard comments before that the space would just be used by the residents. Now I'm hearing that it's possible that the space would be used by other members of the community. So I don't know, I'm not quite sure how I would phrase this as a specific condition of approval.
Okay, Al, if I may, we did start off right from the beginning saying that we would like to share that space for the residents and a community-based, function to some degree as well. There was comments by one of the commissioners that, perhaps that might not be the most, agreeable thing from her perspective or his perspective. I'm not sure who made the comment, but we started out offering that as a sort of a combined community-based, use and, occupancy group use.
All right, and I have a question. This might have been addressed because I did go in and out for about the first 5 to 10 minutes of this meeting. Is that a permitted use in this zone?
It's a conditional, the church or the?
No, I guess my question, Michael, is this. Obviously, the residential tenancies are, residential use is a permitted use in the zone. This extracted use, if you will, of this space, is that a permitted use in this zone?
I don't believe so.
So that poses a question. I mean, that I think could be an issue. And that might be something that needs to be revisited, because if that's the case, then I don't know if this board has jurisdiction over that. Unless, Matt, I heard you say that it's a conditional use. I don't know.
We're looking at the ordinance as you speak. We're looking at the ordinance, council, to see if those conditions are ones that could be, properly applied to this use without the necessity for any sort of use variance.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a conditional use approval, then yeah, it's not a problem. But if it's not a permitted use at all in the zone, then we have an issue.
Right, we think it's a conditional use, and we're just checking to see if we would be in compliance, because we certainly understand it's a jurisdictional issue in that regard. And then if it were not, then the applicant would have to make a decision. Does he want to accept the transfer of this application to the zoning board, or does he want to limit the community space to the residents? So, we'll give us about 2 minutes. Mr. Evans is looking at it, and maybe Mr. Deutsch is as well.
And I will as well.
All right, give me a second.
We have no callers at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're gonna take 2 more minutes for them to look into this.
Okay, Madam Chair, I know Mr. Deutsch and Mr. Aquaviva are looking at it as well. I think Mr. Evans can cite for us the section where we think that the variance or conditions that might be applied to any part of the space being utilized by a charitable institution. So, Mr. Evans, I'll give you the floor. And of course, we're going to be open to Mr. Deutsch and Mr. Aquaviva's thoughts as well.
Okay. So as part of the, that section in the ordinance 500-5.4, the lot area should not be less than 5,000 square feet. The floor area ratio shall not exceed 0.75. This portion of the building would not exceed it, but there's a pre-existing non-conforming condition. Lot coverage shall not exceed 40%. The building itself is 60%, but the area in question would definitely not exceed that. But those would be some of the conditions on the use.
On the charitable use, that would be the only conditions, right?
Yeah. So there's adjacent areas. You have you have other charitable institutions in the area.
Oasis is there.
Oasis is around the corner, which has a large area, and looking to get either some kind of community-based operation that would be acceptable.
Right.
If not, it would have to come before the board if the zoning officer would not approve it.
In our estimation, that these variances are well within the criteria for us to proceed before the planning board, in your opinion?
Yeah, because, I mean, remember, we're in the R4 zone. There's not a lot of R4 in the city of Paterson. It's the most intensive residential area. And I think that what we're proposing is conducive for it. It's adaptive reuse, and it's making the best of the existing site.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr.
Michael,
Michael,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I was just gonna ask Mr. George. Michael, do you agree with that assessment?
Someone, were you gonna say something?
Yes, actually, I want to just ask something from Mr. Evans. So the use that he is looking into is charitable institutions, right, as a conditional use?
Yes.
Because I was just reading the definition in the zoning ordinance, and I was like, based on what you were proposing, the recreational community center basically mostly fit into the area that you're proposing, based on the definition that was provided in the zoning ordinance. Mr. Deutsch can correct me if I'm just, if I'm not right, but the charitable use, institution and organization, association, corporation, or other entity formed or maintained for the purpose of performing or contributing to the performance of charitable, benevolent, and philanthropic or goodwill acts, or a portion thereof, for the benefit of the public in general and not for profit gain or private advantage. So is it something that you're looking for, or the recreational community center, based on what you were proposing at first, that you were looking into a learning center, community room, or fitness center that is not even for the tenants actually of the residential building, but other.
It would be, if I may, someone that's where I was actually going with that. So I understand what you're saying. I'm looking at the section that Mr. Evans cited, which is 500-5.4. It's basically a general description of, you know, an area being used as a charitable institution in a residential district. So I was actually going where you were going. I mean, it's very general, the way section 500-5.4 describes it. I don't know if that applies to what the applicant is proposing.
What's my point? My point is that when you consider the use of the area as a charitable institution, then it's going to be a conditional use. And then all those bullet points that Mr. Evans and Mr. Maricanda mentioned about it, they would apply. But personally, I think that we have to first specify what the use of this area will be. Because if we do consider it as a recreational community center, then this use is not permitted in that area.
Okay. That's what I thought. I mean, that's why, I mean, there's so many different definitions, and there are some that would be permitted, and there's some that would not be. So that's why I think the applicant has to kind of get a little bit more specific as what the area is going to be used for.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's where I was going. I mean, I don't think it could just be a general area for use as a charitable institution in a residential district.
This is a very broad definition of charitable institution. So, as you said that, we have to be more specific about that.
So if it falls within the community center concept that you just alluded to, it's your estimation that that would cause certain requirements that would take us outside of the planning board?
It's not a permitted use, yes.
I mean, if you look, Alan, if you look at I'm looking at the ordinance, and I'm looking at the types of conditional uses. You know, as hospitals, obviously not that. Place of worship, obviously not that. And then I'll skip over, I mean, Matt had indicated that the charitable institution, but then you have public recreation establishments, public parks and playgrounds. I don't think it fits in there. Obviously not a library, museum, or art gallery. It's not a school, not a community shelter or community residence, not a child care center. So those are all the conditional uses under that section.
Right.
You know, there's the one general, which, you hinted to, which you actually not hinted to, you mentioned, which is 500-5.4, it says charitable institution in a residential district, but what? Because if it's not any of those things, it's not permitted. But it's not a permitted use. So I don't know if you want to take a little bit of time to flush that out or come back. That's up to you, but I mean, unless you think you're prepared to address it.
Are you asking me?
Okay, could we go off the record, counsel, for 2 minutes and speak with my client?
Madam Chair?
Yes, let's take 2 minutes break.
I ask a question to the members of the board? This is Commissioner Omar.
I can't hear you. Can you speak up, please?
Sorry.
Can I ask a question to the members of the board before we, resume the meeting?
I think you need to wait until we proceed with the meeting.
We're ready to go. We're ready to go, Madam Chair.
Chairwoman Santana?
Okay.
Madam Chair, we're ready to go back on the record.
I think she's frozen up. I see it loading, but I think she's frozen.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you. Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out something, and I just wanted to point this out to the applicant. In the zoning ordinance, there's a definition in our zoning ordinance of a charitable work institution. And it's defined as an organization, association, corporation, or other entity formed or maintained for the purpose of performing or contributing to the performance of charitable, benevolent, philanthropic, or goodwill acts, or a portion thereof for the benefit of the public in general, and not for profit, gain, or private advantage. So I think Commissioner Figueroa, you hit the nail on the head before in the comment that you made. Basically, if the applicant is going to essentially manage this particular part of the building as a 501c3 type of corporation, a nonprofit, I think it works. But again, it depends on specifically what use. We're not, any type of community center or something like that. I don't think is permitted. So the approval could be conditioned upon that, but then it all depends on what the actual use that's presented at that time. He may be required to come back before another board. But as far as the condition of approval, we could condition it on that particular area being managed by a charitable institution, and then let them present what they have before us at that time. And Mr. Deutsch or someone else can make a decision as to whether or not it's appropriate or not.
I have a question.
I agree.
I'm sorry, can you identify yourself?
Yeah, I'm Commissioner Amar, and this is my first meeting. And I'm not sure if my comment is adequate. You said that this church is not a part of the historical buildings, right?
It is not.
It's not?
It's not subject to the Historic Preservation Committee. No.
Okay, so I was thinking because, you don't know how to use this space, and we're having a lot of concerns on the parking units. Can we consider, demolishing the church place and convert it into parking units? Or that's not possible?
No, that's not what's presented by the applicant. So that's not the application being presented tonight. So the answer to that would be no.
Right.
Oh, okay.
We would definitely concur with the usage of the charitable entity definition that was cited by council, and we would be willing, I think it's accurate to say that the planning staff would have to determine if a proposed tenant falls within the guidelines that was set forth in the definition, just read into the record. That way, if the proposed tenant fits that definition, the sharing of the space with the residents having a community area for them to relax and enjoy some recreation, kind of accomplishes two good things in the same space. So that would be the way we'd like to present it.
Logistically speaking, the way this could possibly work, and again, obviously, this is all conditioned upon the application being approved tonight. A condition could be that particular area would be solely used as a charitable institution under the definition of the zoning ordinance. Now, when or if that time comes when a tenant who has to be a charitable institution proposes the actual use for that space, they would then apply for a CO from the city. at that point, determination would be made whether or not that's permitted, or it's gotta come back before a board, whether it's this board or the Board of Adjustment. So that's how it would actually would work. So, given all of that, I think, you know, it's a proposal that is properly before this board.
We would concur when, on behalf of the applicant, with the idea that the applicant's residents would also derive the benefit of some open, indoor, community room type of space to enjoy. So as again, I think that would accomplish two good purposes.
I just wanna make it clear though, again, who knows what's gonna happen when the CO is applied for.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be solely for the use of the residents. In fact, I don't think it really could be. If it's a charitable institution, it would have to be a benefit to the community in general, including the residents of the residential units.
Right, I agree, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't cutting out the residents, that's all.
Right, okay.
Mr. Deutsch, in that case, does the variance for parking is gonna vary depending on what type of use is gonna be in this location?
That's another good question, because when that CO was applied for, depending on the use, right, Mike? I mean, it's gonna may trigger another parking variance of some sort.
I don't know whether this is pertinent or not, but we didn't advertise this application as a conditional use.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Hey. Alan, are you there?
So, I'm here, well, I certainly understand Mr. Deutsch's point. I think that under those circumstances, we might, if the applicant wants me to proceed tonight, he would have to accept the space for community center purpose, community in-house, recreational and amenity space for the residents, with the idea that if he wanted to supplement or create the adjoining, use that we just discussed, he would have to come back to the board with that specific notice to the public. I would agree with Mr. Deutsch in that sense. We would probably have no choice. Mr. Evans, you would agree?
Yeah, I don't know what.
The notice doesn't mention conditional use, no.
Okay.
So
Which board would that be if we have to come back, planning or adjustment?
It depends basically on the specific nature of the use and whether the conditions of that proposed use would fit within the ordinance. So it sounds like we can do so based upon all the discussion we've had, that such a use would fall within the.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just that, Michael made a very valid point. We're kind of circling around the dartboard here, but at the same token, it hasn't been noticed for that review.
Yeah, so we probably, it's a procedural requirement, Richmond, that council and Mr. Deutsch are pointing out. So it could come back but it would most likely fall within this board. But that would be a determination that our public notice would cover, yes. Mm-hmm.
And we know that in the record, so this way if we come back, we can refer back to it, and then we had a discussion that just because we didn't give notice, we couldn't add it to the.
Well, it's not a matter of not giving notice. Notice was given for the purposes of the application as it was presented this evening. It's the changes that were made on the record that triggered that. In other words, if that was being proposed before this meeting, as part of this application, it would have been part of the notice. It would have been part of the public notice. Yeah. But the changes that are being proposed tonight require another review that the public was not noticed for. So, it would be an adjournment. I mean, it would be a postponement. Nothing that has been put on the record has been negated. It would be included as part of this testimony and part of what was put on the record tonight. It would essentially be an adjournment with the requirement that there be an additional notice. Essentially what it would be.
Well, I would actually ask Mr. Appleby, we were hoping not for it to be an adjournment, but that we would ask for the board to proceed with regard to the residential component of the application with the adjoining community room area that we talked about for recreational and amenity space for the tenants, And if we decided we wanted to come back and seek the conditional use, we would have to come in with amended plans and new notice. That was my
Well,
thought.
I mean, if that's the case, then that wouldn't even have to be part of what is being proposed. Basically, it's not being proposed as a charitable institution, an area used for a charitable institution anymore. It's being used as community space for the residents. So that's what, I mean, if you were gonna come back for something later on, well, that's fine, but I don't think it has to be a part of the request for approval tonight.
Right, I
Essentially,
agree,
it's a
yeah.
community area for the residents.
Right, we wanted to, our amendment, which we started out with, was to remove the church use and have this community space for residents, and we would eliminate the discussion about anyone from outside the building for purposes of proceeding tonight, but with you accurately describing, and Mr. Deutsch accurately describing the nature of the conditional use being a notice requirement, if we decided to come with a proposed charitable use, that would be in essence a new application and new proceeding before the board.
So basically, everybody forget everything that we talked about tonight about charitable use. Strike that, forget about it completely. But
I think
basically,
it's important that we had the discussion though, because really now we know what the parameters are, if we do come back for that purpose. And obviously, I really appreciate the board's time and the professionals' time, because.
Al, I'm sorry, I have one question. You know, when the notice was sent out, wasn't it sent out that there's a church use? Wouldn't that be considered like, charitable use?
Yeah, the church is a very specific type of use based on the existing condition of the building. It does not cover the type of community-based charitable use. It's not specific enough, no.
Okay.
as I understand the application now, the application is for obviously the residential units that are being proposed, and that the area that was the church sanctuary would be used as a community center for the residents. Is that what is being proposed right now?
Right, then we would, if we entertain any further usage of that space, we would.
Well, we'll forget that. I mean, we'll forget that for now. I mean, the application as it's being presented tonight for approval is for the residential units and what was the church sanctuary to be used as a community center for the residents. That's what's being proposed tonight, right?
You're okay with moving forward in that regard tonight?
I mean, that's not what I was looking to do, but.
You understand why we can't.
I understand, yeah, I understand, but I think also this helps our case because, we're much closer to the parking requirements than we were before.
We are, because the church, it does reduce the parking requirements substantially to create the community space for the tenants. That's true. But the additional component of a charitable use, a tenant occupying part of that space, triggers a different type of variance that requires a new notice and a new plan to be submitted.
Let me just clarify. You would have to come back before a board, no matter what happens in terms of using this space as a charitable institution. There would have to be another application before a board with the notice specifically for what it is that you're being used for, if a variance is required. So no matter what, you would have to renotice. You would have, I shouldn't say renotice, you would have to notice no matter what, for any type of use as a charitable institution. Because even if it was a permitted use, it would be a conditional use, and it would require another notice anyway. So no matter what. So the options tonight are, proceed with the application as presented, which is the residential uses and the church sanctuary area to be used as community space for the residents, or adjourn the application, re-notify for whatever it is that you intend to use that space for permanently, for lack of a better term, and come back before either this board or a brand new application before the Board of Adjustment. Those are the options as it stands right now.
We'll take door number one.
Mr. Alpiva.
Yes.
Question. If a motion for approval for this application is made and that is a condition, and then he come back to the board, with this, change, would that be a conflict when it being approved for a specific use like this?
Well, he can come back, let's assume tonight, let's assume that the application gets approved for the residential units and the church sanctuary area being used as community space for those residents, let's assume that, okay? So he walks out the door, he's got those approvals. Now, if or when that proposed, or I should say that space, that church space is proposed for another use, for a charitable institution, for whatever, I don't know, anything that fits under a charitable institution definition under the ordinance, he would make an application for a permit to do that. It would then be reviewed. Now, depending on the use, that may trigger new parking variances, that may trigger new bulk variances, it may trigger a use variance that wouldn't even bring it before this board, it would go before the Board of Adjustment. We don't know what that's gonna be. Right now, it's being approved, it would be approved for the residential space, and that space says community space for the residents, and that's it. If he changes in the future, well, it'll be reviewed under a whole totally different criteria.
Totally agree with council.
Perfect. Okay.
Or number one, as per Richmond's comment.
Now, I also ask for the video cameras in the outside of the premises.
Yes, Commissioner, I have as a proposed condition, well, we're not there yet, because I think we still have a member of the public or members of the public who want to speak, but yes, I do have noted, lighting and security cameras around the perimeter of the building. I do have that noted.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're gonna open up for comments. We have Joseph Grillo. And
Hi. Good evening.
Good, you can make your comments, sir.
Okay. Well, I guess the main, look, we welcome the improvements on the street. Obviously, you can see the improvements are welcome there. But the only concern is, and the most complaints from the tenants and the neighbors is the parking. I mean, it's refreshing that there'll be a church with 90 seats not there. So I'm sure that would help it, but that's the main concern is the parking, really. Because you get a lot of people over on Market Street that park there because they don't want to park where the meters are on Market Street. So it takes up a lot of space. Just from sitting here doing a quick scenario, out of all the families there being apartments, probably have around 43 to 45 apartments and 10 off-street parking. So, so that's a burden on the people that live there and the tenants. So it's a burden regarding the parking, and that's really a main concern. I mean, obviously the plans there are refreshing to see that improvements are coming on the street. It's narrow. It's tight, it's tight, and again, that's the complaints is the blocking there. But everything else, as far as me as a homeowner, it's welcome, so.
Right, if I can say something, the building.
Finn, please bear with me 1 second, okay, before you make your comments. I just wanted to point out in response to Mr. Grillo's comment that we are, I think, providing the most parking that's available on the street with this new project. And we provided an extensive planning testimony with regard to why that variance should be granted with respect to the existing surrounding area, but also with respect to the access to public transportation and the walkability of the area. So we respect and understand Mr. Grillo's comments. I know he owns a multifamily next door, so he knows what it's like to own a building without parking. And we hope that we're going to be very good neighbors based on the testimony submitted.
Right. Well, I'm sure you will. Again, it's just hope to get a parking spot.
Understood. Totally understood.
But yeah, no, look, it's welcome. Obviously, the buildings have been there for as long as I can remember empty. So it's nice to see it get rehabbed and new people on the street too. So.
Thank you very much.
But anyway, it's a positive here. It's not a negative. It's just a concern is the parking. Pretty much, that's it. All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Grillo. Do we have any other callers, Madam Secretary?
No, Chairwoman, we have no callers at this time. You may proceed.
Okay, just one more quick question, Mr. Matthew. If, with the open space variance, if you have this space available now for the tenant, would that count as an open space for it or not?
That would credit the amenity or open space, and we would be well within that criteria of that. We do have a large basement area, as we spelled out before, so that's even additional storage and amenity space that could be used. It's the basement has a large ceiling, so yes, that would definitely help the application.
Yeah, all that internal community space is considered, I believe, falls within the definition of open space and usable space for the tenants. I would agree with Mr. Evans, and I think we can point out that because of the nature of this block, this is really a good opportunity to get that sort of common area, quality space for tenants, more so than probably any other building on this block.
Okay, thank you. If there is no other questions, then, Mr. Maricondo, you can have your clause come in.
Thanks. I'm gonna make it very brief because your board and your staff worked extremely hard to work with us in this application, and we appreciate that very much. We are limiting it, as Mr. Aquaviva defined the conditions of the amended application, so I won't belabor it again. I would ask the board's consideration. We think this is a very positive step in this part of the community, and we understand that anything beyond what we're seeking tonight requires more internal review by the zoning and building department, and if need be, a return to one of the municipal boards. We fully understand and accept that, and we understand the limitations of this community space being for the residents only at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioner would like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, before the motion is made, I just want to point the two conditions, for potential conditions that were mentioned. First was lighting and security cameras would be installed around the perimeter of the building, and the area which is now comprised of the church sanctuary would be converted to a community space solely for the use of the residents. And again, this would all be subject to review by our division director and planner.
Thank you. In this case, any commissioner or would like to make a motion on this application? Okay, any commissioners? Would like to make a motion?
Okay, this is Commissioner Figueroa. All right, so my thing is just so I'm clear, and I just want one final clarification from before I introduce the motion. With Michael Deutsch, is the confirmation of the amendment to the current application with the church to remain is to remove the church, and the two conditions that Al Aquaviva mentioned earlier. So we're not doing anything on the conditional use. Okay. All right. I'm ready to introduce.
Did you ask a question of Mr. Deutsch or?
Yes.
Well, the applicant now has 12 residential units that he didn't previously have, which was, I believe, what he was initially seeking from the board, if the board votes affirmatively.
12 additional units?
12 residential units that he didn't have previously. He didn't have any residential units. I mean, I've seen churches be converted to residential buildings, but I don't know of any church in Paterson that has both residential and religious uses in it.
We're not seeking any religious uses, number one, and we're looking to convert a pre-existing non-conforming industrial use to a conforming R4 use, 12 residential units. And the church area is, I think, very appropriately from a planning perspective being proposed to be utilized for community space for those new residents. So we think it's a win-win situation in that regard.
Okay, I just wanted confirmation, and I'm sorry, because I'm a little bit under the weather. And I'm trying to hang in here through this whole meeting.
We appreciate it.
Is just confirmation from Michael as a planner that it fits into those requirements with the amendment.
I would agree to that, yes.
Okay, that was what I wanted to know, thank you. So, on the application of TNE 2 Paterson LLC, 602 East 33rd Street, Paterson, New Jersey, 07257, at the property address located at 27 Elm Street and 26-30 Elm Street, block 4705, lots 9 and 10. I move that the board attorney prepare a resolution granting site plan approval, bulk variances, city engineer, and the additional conditions of security cameras, lighting and security around the perimeter of the state of the building, and that we include the condition that the church space would be used for community use solely for the use of the tenants. Any other conditional use would have to go before the appropriate boards. Did I get everything?
Yeah.
You got everything, Commissioner. Quite frankly, we don't even need to put that last point in as a
Okay, so
condition.
strike it.
No, that, yes, you got it.
Okay.
I second.
Commissioner Wong?
Motion by Commissioner Figueroa, seconded by Commissioner Iranzo. May I proceed with the vote, Madam Chair?
Please, Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, Commissioner Ahmed, your vote, sir.
Abstain?
Thank you. Commissioner Cleese?
No.
Commissioner Iranzo?
Yes.
Commissioner Roman?
Yes.
Commissioner Aman?
You mean Amar?
Amar, yes, please, I apologize.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Figueroa
Yes.
and Chairwoman Santana.
Yes.
We have 5 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstained. Mr. Aquaviva, call the vote.
This application is approved, right? Yes, 5-1-1, yes.
Thank you, yes. This application has been granted. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and sorry for keeping you so late into the night.
It's okay, that's our job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any
Right.
further business, Mr. Deutsch?
We have one matter for a special meeting on Monday, January 31st.
Okay. I'm gonna be available, for that day.
Great. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, you may close the meeting as you wish. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
All right,
Thank
thank you. I vote to close the meeting. Let's say, oh, aye.
Aye.
Alright, thank you.
Great job, Commissioners.
New commissioners, Anman, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're
All
welcome.
right.
I got
Good one.
Aye.
Aye, good night.
Good night.
Bye.